We are talking to
Hello?
Kat, she, they, North Carolina. Hello.
Hi, Kat.
Hi. How's it going?
Very good. How are you?
You want to talk about morality,
Good.
is that right?
Yeah. The general morality of God and also, like, young earth creationism. I just got back from a women's church retreat with my parents, or with my mom and my sister. And it went about like you'd expect talking to fundamentalists.
So you're an atheist, right?
Yes.
Okay,
And
sounds fun.
I just wanted to, I tried talking to them about how God really just isn't moral and how you can't be just and merciful at the same time, and how his code of ethics and what he's done in the Bible is just kind of atrocious. But I feel like it just always goes in one ear and out the other.
Right. I think, I guess there's different strategies for explaining things to people you disagree with. And it's obviously very different if you're arguing with someone on the internet and when you're arguing with your family. And when your family, like the pros and cons are with your family, in most cases, you can spend a long time working on them. You don't have to convince them in one sitting. But on the other hand, the relationship's more important to you. And if you upset them, it can be more difficult. So I think that's worth bearing in mind going on these things. Like a lot of people are very invested in their belief systems, and trying to deconvert them is can be upsetting for them. And I guess always consider that. But in terms of explaining why God isn't moral, I think the easiest attack angle on that is really staying super focused on one thing, and they're going to try and change the subject. They're going to try and lead you off in some other route, tell stories, anecdotes, everything. All you want to do is keep focusing on the part in the Bible, in Exodus, everyone at the ACA's favorite part of the Bible, Exodus 21:12 or whatever it is, where it gives the rules for how to treat slaves. And you just need to, for
Yeah.
most people, you can say, do you personally think that slavery is moral? And in a sort of abstract strategic sense, it's kind of a checkmate, because they either have to agree that slavery is moral, which is horrific, and you can very easily explain to someone why keeping another human is disgusting, and it's quite easy to they know that most people are, even someone who might for the sake of an argument agree with it, or even maybe some people who do support slavery in some way, they know it's immoral because the vast majority of the world thinks that, and they're aware of it. And so it's very easy to say that is immoral, it's a disgusting position. What if you were the slave? You wouldn't appreciate this. Or the other choice is they have to say, no, I don't think it's moral. And then you can say, well, so what you're saying is your morality is better than your God's. Even if you agree on every other single thing, you disagree on this one thing, and you disagree because you think you are better than it. And then they'll change the subject to say other things. You can just keep going back to it. And no, you think you're more moral than your God. So how can your God be moral? You're a flawed human, and this God is saying something so obviously disgusting. And I mean, there are loads of other parts in it. The thing that convinced me most is about God's condemnation of gay sex and stuff. But I think the slavery one's just the easiest point to attack on. Have you tried that?
Yeah.
Sorry if you have.
I actually have. I brought up those exact verses to her, and she basically just said that, well, they were keeping slaves anyways, so he just did that to make sure they were treated well. And even whenever I brought up that they're clearly not treated well, she basically said, well, Moses wrote that, Jesus didn't, or God didn't. It was
I think it's important to just keep going back on it and be like, no, okay, whether they were keeping slaves then or not, they were doing lots of things. They were, coveting each other's wives and each other's oxes. And God said, hey, this is not on. You must stop it. And God is serious, because one time he flooded the entire world because people were not behaving. God doesn't mess around. He is not prepared to compromise on human morality. He says what he thinks, and he says, you shall respect me. You shall respect your parents. This is a strict rule. And then he's like, oh, and slaves? Yeah, do what you want, really. I mean, just don't kill him. That's just
yeah.
It's not a good argument, is it? And they can say, oh no, because it was different in those times. It's like, this is God. It's an eternal being, And God has problems with some things humans do. God has specifically said, do not lay with a man as you lay with a woman. He said that. He made that rule because people were doing it. People were having sleepovers all over the shop. And then people were having slaves, and he's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, my take is very, very similar, Kat, but I mean, I don't go to the slavery thing. I've got a different go-to. And that's Numbers 31, where God himself in the text, it's not anyone else, it's God who gives Moses the clear instruction to destroy the Midianites. And Moses goes out, carries out God's instructions, and they don't actually follow all the orders to the letter. And God gets really, really, really pissy about it. And he actually sends them back out to finish the job because they've not done it all. So they kill, and it's not just all the men, all the women, all the animals. The only people God doesn't want killed are the virgin girls, who were to be taken as spoils of war by the army and by God's invading army. And that's my kind of go-to, because there's not really that, as you said when you talked to your parents before, that about they kind of use that thing of, well, people did that at the time, people kept slaves, and there's not really that excuse in that. This is clear. It's in black and white that God sends people to slaughter an entire kind of people, and he wants the virgin girls kept for himself. And the word used actually is taf, which it specifically relates to a child. And he wants all the female children, all the taf, to be kept as spoils of war. Now, it doesn't specifically say sex slaves, but it's quite clear that's what it means. Before bringing this verse up, what I'd tend to do is ask if you think, just present this situation but not give the biblical context, and say, if this situation occurred, if an army went out and slaughtered an entire people except for the virgin girls, and they took them for themselves. I mean, you don't even have to be so implicit as to say as sex slaves. Just say they took the virgin girls for themselves. It kind of speaks for itself. Do you think that's a moral action? And I'm absolutely
Yeah.
certain that your parents would say, no, that's not moral. And any army that does that is absolutely immoral. And then point them into this verse, which clearly states this, and just kind of because they'll then try making excuses about it, and then just try and point out the cognitive dissonance between, when it's not God involved, it's immoral, but when it is God, then suddenly it becomes moral. And just kind of, don't press them, just leave them with that, and then go back a few days later and broach
Say
it
the same
again
thing
and see
again.
and see if they've had time to, give them time to think about it and see what they say then. Have you tried any particular methods yourself?
Yeah, so you sound exactly like me last night whenever I was talking to my mom and my sister. That's basically all the points I brought up, and many, many more. Was one of the ones was Numbers 31, 44 through 46, where it basically says that they keep the virgin girls for themselves. And basically she read the chapter and she was like, actually, God told them to kill all of them. And Moses told them that they could keep the virgins. And God was mad at them for that. So
but Moses
history.
told them
That's
on
not
God's orders.
something they approve of.
I'd
And
really
so
dig
whenever
down
I
into
tried
the
to
text and
Also,
highlight.
murder's bad.
You get a
that's right. He
highlighter
just
out
said
and
slaughter the girls instead of rape them. Oh, that's fine then. Oh,
that's
God's
what
moral
I
after
told
all.
her.
You've convinced me.
what's a jolly
Yeah,
nice lad this
basically.
God is.
My exact words were in trying to avoid justifying child rape, you're now trying to justify genocide of an entire people. And they basically said those people had a chance to repent, and they chose to be evil, and they were just completely evil, all of them, and there wasn't a single person that was good in the city, so it was good for them to all be killed.
maybe say, so you, Kat, have had a chance to repent and you haven't. What would happen if God's army turned up and genocided you in front of her? Would she just be like, oh, well, Kat had a chance to repent, fucker? Like, or would she be like, hey, no, that's
One
not
time
fair
I
because
asked
I know
my
I'm going to win
dad.
my daughter back? Sorry?
My dad actually stopped talking to me for a while after I like came out as gay. And they started like accepting me again once I like started dating someone who they think is a guy. And I was talking to my dad like, would you literally kill me if I was like born in the other culture where like, you know, because it says right here that I deserve the death penalty, but he's like, oh, that was back then. And I was like, well, what if we were back then? And he's like, I probably couldn't do it, but yeah, it would be the right thing to do. So,
Man, Christians say the nicest things, don't they? There's no love like Christian love.
yeah, my
No.
sister called me an abomination for being gay. And they,
Oh, sorry to
after
hear
I
that.
told them my many points about why I believe in evolution, my sister just goes, well, I know what the real problem is. You're mad at God. You have been for years.
Yeah, they love saying that, and they're kind of used to people saying, "No, I'm not mad at God. I just don't have any." Like, I'm mad at God. If God's real, then he's a fucking prick. Like, I'll take him on in the marketplace of ideas. I, genocide is bad. Like, I'll take you on, God. Yeah, it is very
Yes.
difficult to argue with, especially with people who are more set in their ways and their entire like society and the
Yeah.
day-to-day life and everything is so entrenched in this. If
Yeah.
just like as someone, especially if you live in like a fundamentalist family, as someone who is gay, in one sense you've got less to lose, and that's not to say that it's not more painful, because obviously you're kind of forced out of it because something you are is incompatible with the belief system, but it means that you have some kind of benefit
Yeah.
to dropping these beliefs. They don't in the same way, and
Yeah.
you would hope that they could drop their beliefs for their daughter or their child, but you know, it is kind of depressing. But I do feel like sometimes it's very easy for them to say things like it's obviously very harmful and disgusting of them to say like, oh, well, it would be the right thing to kill you, like, oh, you know, genocide is fine because they didn't repent or something. But the reality is that likely they couldn't do that if they're actually pushed to it, and if they're actually made to engage their emotions rather than, like, there's this kind of idea of a thought terminating cliche where you just say something that to you is an excuse enough that you don't have to engage your brain and you don't have to engage your emotions. And like a classic example of that in this
Yeah.
kind of context is saying, oh, well, it was different then. Like, what does that mean? That does So what? You're saying that God's morality has changed? Like, obviously it's not consistent, but all that's important for them is they have a little one liner to say. And if you say, oh, so do you agree if God just came and killed me? They'll just be like, oh, well, it's the morally right thing to do, whatever. But then if you can just be like, stop, no, I'm not trying to just have an argument with you here for the sake of it. And I'm like, whether I'm angry at God or not doesn't really matter. What I want to know is, do you really, would you really be okay with like your child being killed for not believing this thing? Like, is that really try and
Yeah.
emotionally engage with me on this? And you know, the likelihood is that you will get upset because you've chosen to emotionally engage, and they will try and shut off from emotionally engaging, because if they were to emotionally engage, then it would be incredibly painful for them, because they would be having to face up to, firstly, their, you know, the idea of their child being killed for something, but secondly, this whole kind of worldview they've got that says everything is nice and fits together and works, and it's built on their entire life, and actually there's a huge hole in it and it's really painful. So I don't know, it's horrible, but I guess my main advice to changing people's minds is it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and it takes multiple different approaches, and to just not burn yourself out on it. If engaging emotionally with them is hurting you, then take a break, because you know, they've got better defenses for this than you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Katie, and I
Yeah. And I
think
was just
we
on
should
like,
emphasize.
sorry.
Sorry, Kat, go on.
Oh, Yeah, I just got back from like a women's retreat with them because I really wanted to spend time with them because they are good people whenever we're not discussing religion. And I did have fun, but the whole theme was that you were broken and you need to be healed by Jesus. And they were just like bringing up people's traumas and trying to get people like emotional about things. And they had mentioned like a mother who has a daughter who's astray from Christ. And of course, that got my mom crying. And I'm like, don't you see that they're just trying to get you to feel broken so you think you need saving? But it just did not get through. And when I say they're fundamental in their beliefs, like my mom teaches young earth creationism at like a homeschool classes and also teaches me and all of my 12 siblings homeschool young earth creationism. We have lifetime passes to the Creation Museum. I've been there like 3 or 4 times in my life.
Man,
a lifetime
that
pass
is
to the
intense.
Creationist Museum. That's a gift to give someone, isn't it? I think, I think emphasize your relationship, your particular relationship, and let them know that you love them, and even though you disagree with them, you still love them, and let them see that you're a good person, regardless of anything else. And don't you know. I'm not saying don't point out that God is immoral, because God is immoral, and there's nothing wrong with pointing that out. But I wouldn't so much. I mean, in your case, I don't think that's the primary concern. I don't think that's the be all and end all of kind of pointing stuff like that, because they're going to see that as combative. And I'd just really concentrate on your relationship with them and showing that you, as an atheist, as a non-straight person, is somebody who's a good person, and you're a good person, and in their moral system, what they consider good moral behavior, you can actually do that out. The way you conduct yourself with people is moral in their eyes, but you just have this different outlook, and you have this different attraction to what they consider normative. And I'd push down that route, and kind of get them to accept you for who you are. And I think that will have much more impact than kind of trying to get them to see God as immoral. And I think in time, showing that you're a good person and showing that you still care about them, that will have much more of a transformative action on them and of their view of other people than trying to push this line that God is immoral.
Yeah, winning people over by like exposure is it does work better than rational arguments, because humans aren't very rational. And even other things you can do as well as yourself. You can, when there's someone, it's like, oh, this person's given a load of money to charity, or oh, this person's done this amazing moral thing. Just be like, oh, they're an atheist. And then just change the subject.
Yeah.
And when they start realizing that atheists are normal, they'll be more inclined to be like, oh, okay, well, maybe our child isn't the worst person on earth, and then they might be won over that way.
Yeah, Kat, we really appreciate your call. Sorry, Kat, I'm going to give you the last word. We are pushing up to the end of the show. I'm going to give you the last word, and then we're going to let you go. But we really, really do appreciate your call.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't see them super often. I don't live with them, but I do see them sometimes, and they still are nice people, and I really do care for them. I just, God being immoral was the first thing I came up with, but I do really try to show them through my actions that I can just still be a good person without their religion.
Yeah. I think that's definitely the way to go with it. Listen, we do appreciate your call. It's been fantastic talking to you. Please call back anytime you want to talk to us, and we'll speak to you again, hopefully.